Hey there guitar players, in this fretboard knowledge, fretboard mastery session that I'm doing for you at the moment here on the Cutting Edge Guitar Anthony George channel, I want to talk to you about the CAGED system. So after I've got my students learning the notes, intervals and triads and that stuff, and then introduce them to something called the CAGED system. Now something that we should talk about right off the bat here is that the CAGED system gets a lot of abuse online these days for various reasons. So what I want to say to you is it is not the be all and end all system for fretboard knowledge, but also it is a really good one. I think most of the people that run it down don't really understand it the way that they ought to, because it is a really great system. So let's talk about some of the things that people maybe get wrong with this, try and iron out a couple of issues that will help you, and we'll go from there. So if I play a very simple chord on the guitar, let's say something like this. This is a G major chord, okay? Now most people, when they're talking about this in terms of like caged positions and stuff like that, they'll call this the G chord in its E shape because it looks like an open E chord. Now this all comes from the fact that when we're using the CAGED system, we say generally that if you use the shapes of an open C, A, G, E and D chord and then fan them out across the fretboard, it allows you to play a C chord in lots of different positions, etc, which I completely get that and understand where that comes from for people, but I think the terminology is quite confusing and it confuses a lot of players. So what you want to do is look at this not as a G chord in its E shape, but as a G chord in shape 1 or position 1 or zone 1, whatever thing you want to call it about the position. Just think of it in terms of a numerical position. Don't think of it as an E shape, because what I find with people when I'm teaching them about this stuff is they get confused by going, so is this G or is it E? Because obviously by the confusion around the name of the shape stops them from understanding what key they're playing in. So if you think of this as G shape 1, you're in the key of G, that's it. There's nothing to confuse you anymore. So of course when you go up through this, if you don't know the chord shapes, that would be the first thing that I'd get my students to learn, just to be able to play a major chord shape, which is actually a major triad, like we talked about triads in the last lesson. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second, but this is a G major triad chord shape, shape 1. Next door to that you have this one. Okay, now sometimes the way that I do this, I put this interval, which hopefully if you've watched my previous video you'd understand that this is a major third. So I put the major third in the bass so that it comes out like this. Oops. Okay, now the reason that I do that is because one, it's easier to hold, but also as well, it's probably a shape that's a bit more usable in the real world. For example, if you were playing a G to C, like a 1-4 chord progression, it sounds quite nice if you use that shape too as a walk up. It's got this really nice sort of moving bass thing, which sounds really cool. So that's a bit more useful. So then if I go into the next shape, G chord shape 3, not G chord in its C shape because it looks like an open C. It's just so confusing. It's a G chord in shape 3. Okay, now because of course the thing is this, it's so transferable to all the other keys, because you can be like, well, do I want to play a, I don't know, E flat in shape 3? Well, it's there, isn't it? Just move to the root note. Now that goes back to another lesson that I talked about, which is the root notes. It's so important to know them. But anyway, let's go back to the key of G, then we'll talk about the root notes and that sort of stuff. So shape 4, standard bar chord shape. So that is a G chord in shape 4. Then you've got your G chord in shape 5. Now, when you're looking at any one of these positions, how you're determining what key you're in and everything is because you need to know, in any shape, you need to know where the root notes live. So in shape 1, your root notes live here, here, and here. In shape 2, your root notes live here and here. In shape 3, your root notes live here and here. Shape 4, they live here and here. Shape 5, they live here, here, and here. Now it's really important that you remember that, so you probably want to see some PDFs and stuff with that on. There's a couple of exercises that you can do that really helps with that, which I've included all at Cutting Edge Guitar. Now once you've got your intervals, your root notes down, the next thing that you want to be able to do, again as I talked about in a previous lesson here, is from any particular root you want to be able to go, where's the second, where's the third, where's the fourth, where's the fifth, where's the sixth, where's the seventh, where's my octave. You want to be able to do that in 2 octaves for definite. So root 2, root 3, root 4, root 5, root 6, root 7, root octave, and all of that stuff, so that you've got in a command of the notes. And then finally you can drop into any of these positions. The triad, a full triad, so you can see it over the 3 strings like we talked about in the last lesson, but that's a full position in shape 1, so it's a shape 1 G major triad. I could play a shape 1 G major 7 arpeggio. I've got my shape 1 G major pentatonic scale. I could play the major scale, or I could change that to the Lydian mode, etc, etc. So what I'm doing now is around each caged root note and chord relationship, I can drop in all of the other information for playing pretty much any sound that I want. Any sound that you can find in the Western world, you can relate it to 5 caged positions. So that's what makes it such a great way of navigating the fretboard. There is a whole ton more that we could talk about when it comes to the CAGED system, but I think that's probably enough here for YouTube. So if you want to learn more about all of that stuff, just come and visit me at Cutting Edge Guitar. I've made tons and tons of lessons all about that. Also, if you just want to support what I'm doing here on the YouTube channel, it's the best way to do it is to visit me at Cutting Edge Guitar. You can subscribe to the community for a very small monthly fee, and that helps me out making all of the content I'm doing here. Okay guys, thanks ever so much for watching. Hope it's been helpful. I'll see you in the next lesson.